So in this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a logical model in ERwin. And this is ERwin version 9.5. So let's first create a new file and choose the logical/physical because later we're going to convert this logical into a physical model, then create our tables in SQL Server. Choose from drop down the versions of SQL Server you installed and plan to use. So now you can see that there's a canvas area and then a tree structure explorer on the left side and toolbar on top. So let's first create an entity. This is the entity icon. If you mouse over the icons, it will give you a hint. Click on the entity icon, the mouse will become like an image of a small entity. And click anywhere on the canvas, and the default name will be a E/1 or whatever number you of entity you created. E stands for entity. So we want to put a customer as the entity name in here. So now that if we expand the entities, we can see the customer table. We can add some new attributes by right-click, new, for example, customer ID, and first name, last name. If we highlight one of the attributes and right-click and go to properties, that will take us to the attribute properties editor. So we first want to check primary key for customer ID. So you can see that there's a key icon showing in front of the customer ID. We usually place a number as the parent domain for primary keys and integer as the logical data type. Name should be a string, and usually the default 20 is not enough, so 250 is a safe bet. Same for last name, so that way we can take care of customers with long first name and last names. And so we can see that the customer ID has been pushed above the line as the primary key, but it doesn't show yet a key icon, so we need to do some configuration. So first of all, let's make sure that it's information engineering. If you click on models and go to model properties, under the notation for both logical and physical, we use information engineering, so that's good. Right click anywhere on the campus and go to properties and make sure under the display we want to display parent to child verb phrase, so that way if you give a description on top of the relationship, such as customer make orders or customer places orders, it will show on the model. Also under the entity, make sure that to display logical primary key designator. So that will show a little key icon in front of any PK primary key. Foreign key and migrated attributes automatically checked. We explain migrated attributes in the following examples. So now you can see that the key icon shows in front of customer ID. Let's create one more customer places orders, one more entity over here. Let's give it order ID, and then probably there's an order date. So again, we want to, if you right click on the entity, then you can select from the pop-up menu attribute properties. That's the same effect as you right click on any attribute. Primary key, the date should be day and time format, and close. Now we have two entities. We're ready to make our first relationship. So as I demonstrated in class, there are two types of relationship: identifying and non-identifying. You use the identifying when you need the parent's primary key to be ported over to the child's as part of the primary key, also. So if I demonstrate using the identifying relationship, I click on the icon, click on the parent, click on the child, and you can see that the customer ID coming in both as a foreign key and also part of the primary key, which we don't need because we already have order ID as the primary key. So let's undo that. And we want to use the non-identifier. We only need the customer ID to be a foreign key in the order. So click on that and click the parent, click the child. So now customer ID shows as a foreign key in here and foreign key only. So now we have a relationship. What if we want to change the cardinality constraints over here? If we say that non-order should exist if there's no customer connected to it. So this minimum cardinality should be one and only one customer. So how do we change that? We can right-click and select property. So that takes us to the relationship editor. On the relationship editor, in the general tab, on top there's no option. And by default, no is allowed. So this controls the parent side, the one side, one-to-many, right? One side of the cardinality constraint. So if we choose no is not allowed here, you can see that change occurred. So now the minimum is 1, maximum is also 1. Now what if I want to change this side, the child side, or the many side of the cardinality constraint to get rid of the 0? For example, customer exists in my database only when it plays at least one order, can be multiple too. So now you can take a look at this cardinality over here controls that feature. So by default, there's 0, 1, or more. So from the drop down, let's choose 1 or more. See that 0 went away. Okay, so this is how you can configure your relationship cardinality. You also drag and drop the drag and replace the entity anywhere on your canvas. You can also zoom out or zoom in while working on it. Now, we talk about many-to-many relationship in logical model. We usually introduce a associative entity. So let's see if we have a product table, which product will be placed in orders. And so one order can contain many products. So one product can be placed in many orders. That's many-to-many relationship. So therefore, we want to first of all create some primary keys and attributes for the product table, and maybe product should have a price, stock quantity, etc., and then the primary key should be there, and price can be number, and we can do decimal, and we can leave 2 points. And so then we talk about order line in our lecture. So this order line is kind of like acting as associative entity in between the order and products many-to-many relationship. So we want to, at this time, use the identifier relationship because we want to port over both PKs, primary key, to be used as the composite primary key for order line. So let's click identifier relationship order line. So order ID comes in both as a foreign key and primary key. And again, product order line. So now it exists. So in the order line, we also have special attributes that belong to that table, such as order quantity. So each of the products in each order, how many ordered. Okay. So you can also change the size of the entity here. And for another type of the special feature of relationship, for example, if I have person and this person has dependents, so let's first give the person an ID and maybe a person's name. Let's just make it simple. It's the first name, last name. I just put a name here, and then for the ID, I need it to be a primary key. Let's just make it simple. But how do we create that unary relationship that it points to itself? So we want a foreign key. We already have a primary key, so we don't need an identifier relationship. Just non-identifier relationship, click this table, and then click itself again. So 2 clicks on the same table. So that's a unary relationship. And so this is a one-to-one relationship. You can further change that, modifying the properties, attributes, 0, 1, or more. Okay, and then so at this time it didn't show any of the foreign key yet because we poured over the ID. So we need to give you a new name under the still in the relationship editor, relationship property, under the row name tab. There's a migrated attribute ID. So in here, that's our foreign key, but it didn't show yet because it's the same name as the primary key. Let's give a different name, such as in this case, dependent ID. So now you can see that dependent ID showing as the FK in here. So then you can store both the person's information, such as name and phone number, so on, together in the same table, store the dependent ID and name, dependent name and phone number, address, and so on. And so you can also have that relationship who's dependent. And you can also use this technique similarly for BOM, bill of material kind of problem. So for example, product, if we want to say manufactured, this is my BOM, bill of material table. So in this table, I want to say, I want to record how many components to make one product. So we're going to need a product ID to come in as the primary key, so identifier relationship. And again, we need component ID, and component is also type of product. So one more time, from product to manufacturer. But now that we see, actually there are 2 product ID in here, both foreign key and primary key. It just doesn't show both of them because the name is the same. So we use the same technique going into relationship, one of the relationship property, and the row name, migrated attribute product ID, we're gonna rename it. We're gonna give it a row name to be component ID. And now you can see both of them. So now we can add some special attributes under the manufacturer entity, such as the component quantity. Okay, so component quantity. So in our example in class, I give you a practical example of mountain bike. So mountain bike model 1 would be the product ID, and then mountain bike wheel model 1 would be the component ID, and it takes 2 wheels to make a mountain bike. So the quantity here is 2. So that's how we represent that kind of relationship.